Welcome to the Chase Hudson Show, a podcast dedicated to inspiring you to become extraordinary. Each week, we sit down with top-tier business owners, real estate investors, and influencers to inspire you to build your legacy. It's time to level up. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chase Hudson Show. Today we have Teshima, who is the founder of foreUp, a cloud-based golf management software solution. This is such an awesome interview. Evan tells the story of founding foreUp his senior year at BYU, bootstrapping it, growing it to servicing over 2,000 golf courses across the country and Canada. Really cool story. If you like golf, if you've ever booked a tee time, you've most likely used the foreUp software. So excited for you guys to listen to this one. And with that, let's dive in. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Chase Hudson Show. Today we have Evan Teshima, who was the CEO and co-founder of foreUp, a cloud-based golf management software solution which provides solutions to golf courses across the country. Evan founded foreUp in 2011. Is that right, 2011?
Yeah, that's correct.
While in his senior year at BYU, with his co-founders, they bootstrapped foreUp to over 70 employees and grew to provide services to over 1,100 golf courses throughout the United States and Canada. So with that, welcome in, Evan.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think by the end of it, we're around 140 employees. So
wow. Okay, so that's a
little
bit
dated.
more
The last few years, but yeah,
double the size.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Well, thanks for being here, Evan. I'm really excited. Through our mutual connection, Reggie, I've heard about foreUp. I know I've used your software many times to book tee times and that whole thing. So I've heard great things, and I'm excited that we could get to know you a little bit better here on the show.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, usually the first thing I ask my guests, Evan, is to talk just a little bit about your upbringing. So, childhood or teenage years or anything formative that molded you, inspired you, made you who you are today would be very interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, for sure. I grew up in Northern California in a place called El Dorado Hills. And growing up, golf was always, a passion of mine since I was, 12, 13 years old. And I think that's really helped me on my journey. When I was 12, 13, I didn't really have a cell phone or anything else. My mom always called the golf course the best babysitter. So she would actually drop me off early in the morning. I'd wake her up at like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, and she would hike me to the golf course. She'd give me about $8, so $6 to play all day on this par 3 municipal golf course. And then she'd give me about $2 for lunch, and I could actually eat lunch off of that, right? And so I'd be there from morning till, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. when she finished work. And so she always called that her cheapest babysitter. But just being out on the golf course, when you're that young, right, and you're playing all day, you're playing so many holes. And at these golf courses, they're always joining you up with different golfers. And most golfers aren't kids like me, but they're, older people, maybe 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? So I got to play with a lot of people. When you're spending that much time out there with those types of people, you're conversing and, starting conversations and talking about life. And so, I just grew up on the golf course talking to a lot of different individuals about their professions. And I was just fortunate to have that social interaction in my life. And, golf provided that. I was never like the best golfer, but I sure enjoyed being out there and being with people. And it's just been a great game for my upbringing from like a social aspect, I would say. Outside of that, we're a middle income family, great mom, great dad. I did have an uncle that started several companies out in the Silicon Valley. He was a CFO of several of them. And I just remember, watching him work so hard and make a good amount of money, right? As a kid, he would actually, buy us great Christmas presents, and he would take us on great vacations, right? Me and my family. And I was, always so surprised about how charitable he was on giving to our family. And that, and he really opened up the door and opened up my mind and made me realize that, there are bigger opportunities out in this world, right? You can make more, be more, and do more. And so I always had, really a good example in him growing up. But outside of that, I had great friends, great upbringing, right, in California. That's just a quick, short background on where I come from. So.
Love it. That's great. You had some great influences with your uncle, good parents, and then the golf you mentioned. As I've been working in real estate, golf is a pretty a good staple, I'd say, in terms of the networking aspect and just getting to know people. And I do think there's something to be said about that. Even though some may view it as not working, I think the relationships you can form just in a different environment and culture, it's a lot of fun. So, going from your earlier teenage years, you attended BYU, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that experience. I have a lot of entrepreneurs on the show, and everyone kind of has a different thought about college and what the idea was going into it, what they wanted to get out of it. So yeah, I'd love to hear, Evan, from you, kind of your thoughts on college overall, your experience at BYU, and how that was for you.
Yeah. No, college is great. I recommend it to anyone. For me, where it benefited me the most was networking and just the social aspect. I mean, I had a ton of fun in college, right? And of course I got, my work done and everything else, but just the people you meet, the people you run into is probably the biggest benefit that I see from a college experience. Taking calculus classes and statistics classes and chemistry, like I could care less for that kind of stuff, right? I think curriculum could be changed a little bit. Probably spent way too many hours in the math labs and whatnot, and it hasn't really benefited me too much, right, in my life. But I think just from an aspect of like networking and just the social aspects of college, it was a great experience for me. Made a lot of good friends, and I actually met my co-founders in college as well. So I really appreciated college from that perspective. But as far as like the learning, I went to college not even knowing what I wanted to be, right? Like I studied marketing, and I never really wanted to be like a marketer, but I just did it because it was in the business school and it seemed more interesting than being an accountant, right?
Sure.
So, all throughout college, I didn't even know what I wanted to be. Like I just kind of was just having fun in college and doing my thing, getting to know people, and didn't really have a complete plan after, like my friends who want to be dentists, doctors. I just, was going along with the ride, and fortunately, I found what I wanted to do my senior year. But that was only through one of my teachers that was an entrepreneur himself. So college was more of a discovery phase of my life than I'm going to college to be like a doctor or a dentist or something like that, right? So would I change anything about college? No. I mean, it was a great experience. I recommend anyone going. But as far as like a learning aspect, I found different learnings to be more beneficial to me than just the curriculum that you have.
Yeah, love it. So your senior year, it sounds like you were kind of going through the marketing program, not really sure what you wanted to do. How did you come across the concept of, well, I guess maybe before we're getting to foreUp, the idea of starting a business? You're in your marketing curriculum. Did you do internships? Were you seeking a job? Did you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, how did that come?
No. I remember it was my senior year in college, and I was looking at classes, right? I actually had to fill my schedule with one more class, and I didn't know what to take until I saw this class called Creating New Ventures, and one of my friends had said it was really good. And it was taught by a professor named John Richards. And so I took the class, I just threw it on the schedule, and that was the most inspiring class that I had. That was probably my turning point on wanting to be an entrepreneur. My teacher, he had a lot of successes, and he was a philanthropist and everything else, and a great angel investor in the state, but then dedicated a lot of his time to teaching at BYU. But I remember him just telling story after story about, the startup life and what it was like, and how, at certain points of his business that he was making more money than baseball players, right? And I was like, well, that's possible, right? You can actually make that type of money. So he really opened up my eyes to, more opportunities. And I remember him saying that, college is a great time to start a business. And the reason being is because you are like a broke college student and you can just continue being a broke college student, right? Like it's really hard to start a business a little bit later on in life when you have a family and you have health insurance and you have a nice steady pay. I mean, telling your wife that you're going to go make $0 in hopes of making millions one day might not fly, with her. And so I remember thinking, wow, that's pretty inspiring. Like I can actually try this now. Like I am a broke college student and I can just continue living like this. I mean, we don't have a lot of expenses. I was married, but we didn't have any kids. And so, that just really changed my mindset about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that makes a lot. And I agree completely with that. I wish, looking back, I wish I would have been more entrepreneurial during my college years because, like you said, there's very minimal downside. We were living in a basement apartment for $400 a month, and it's like, surely we can scrape by. We're going from nothing to about the same thing. So I think that's really, really great advice, Evan. So you sign up for this class. How did the idea of foreUp come about? And were there other ideas before foreUp? Like, were you throwing darts at the board with some buddies? Like, how did it come about?
Yeah, I mean, some initial ideas that I had, like in the class, was I remember it was a toilet seat lifter because I hate touching the toilet seat. So I want like a pedal or something that like opened up the toilet seat for me and close it. I'm sure there's a bunch of that out there now. So that was an idea. I wanted to do an empanada shop. I served my mission in Argentina and loved empanadas and didn't see a lot of, empanadas here. And so I thought that would have been a cool idea. But none of those things were like made me terribly passionate. I wasn't passionate about those ideas, right? But then I had this golf idea because I still loved golf. I mean, I was too broke to play golf. So like there was a period of my life where I didn't really play much just because it was so expensive. But I did notice that there were just issues in the golf industry where if you want to play a tournament, it was pretty expensive and you'd have to play on a Saturday or on a Friday when I was in school. So I wanted to create more competitions. I wanted more social interaction between like golfers, right? Because I still don't see a lot of that today. So basically our initial idea was to create basically the Facebook of golf, like a social media platform for golf where golfers can connect of similar handicaps and they can create their own matches and tournaments and so forth. And I thought that would have been an amazing idea. Quickly found out, going through the business model and business plan, process that it wasn't the best idea. I mean, we did the business plan competition at BYU and I remember spending hours staying up all night putting this like thesis together, right? That was, 100 pages long. And we didn't even make it past the first round, right? Like no one liked it. I liked it, but no one else did. We thought we had the greatest idea ever. But there were differing opinions out there, right? So and we did several competitions and literally never made it past like the first round with this idea. But we just kept going and it kind of morphed a little bit. We started meeting with golf courses and they were nice to us saying, oh yeah, that's a nice idea. But like when it came to like signing a contract for tee times or trying to get paid, for the service, they wouldn't do anything. One thing we did notice though, which was the turning point, is as we were meeting with these golf courses, they started to talk about their point of sale, just like as side notes, like, oh crap, my point of sale is down, right? Or my point of sale is a real POS, right? My POS is a POS, is what they would say. We just sensed a lot of frustration while we were meeting with those golf courses just about their system that was running the pro shop and the operations there. At the time, I didn't even know what a point of sale system was. So I just asked them like, well, what's a point of sale system? We're like, well, come take a look. So we sat behind the counter and we realized that like everything was client server side software. So if a golf course wanted a point of sale, they had to call, Easy Links or For Reservations or one of the providers out there. They had to send out a representative. They had to install the software on 1 to 2 terminals. They had to install a server, right? If the accountant needed reports at the end of the day, she had to drive to the golf course to get the reports, print them out, like super archaic technology. And, it looked like an Excel spreadsheet. Like everything out there looked like a terrible user experience. And so even though we didn't know what a point of sale system was, we looked at it and we're like, well, why don't we do what Salesforce did and come out with the first cloud-based point of sale system in the golf industry? And I think it was a benefit to us to not know what a point of sale system was, because we had to work hand in hand with golf courses. Like, hey, what is a point of sale system? What do you like about it? What do you hate about it? And so that's where we kind of started our journey, getting off onto that side. And we also realized that we could get paid for our point of sale system pretty quickly, because it was like a necessity. A golf course had to have a point of sale. So we didn't have to go for the 1 million users before we got $1 million, right? Like, we were able to start selling it pretty quickly after we got up, some prototypes, some betas going. And so we quickly realized that was the path that we needed to take.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you pivoted when you needed to, you identified a problem, a void that needed to be resolved, and then you guys narrowed your focus in that area. So that's great. So yeah, walk us through kind of the first year. Like, how did you guys, you're seniors at BYU. How did you go from the idea and having some initial conversations to developing software, funding that? Did you have to raise money? Kind of walk us through that first year.
So we were at BYU, and my professor, John Richards, he was part of a program called Boom Startup, which is a startup accelerator. So luckily, my connection through him helped us get into that program. And so we were able to work with mentors and investors on developing, our business model, the software, and everything else. We pivoted probably 7 times during that. So when we got in, we didn't know that we were heading the point of sale direction, right? So we started off with the golf social media platform. Then we wanted to sell tee times. And then we wanted it, easier ways for golfers to book tee times through like a text messaging system. But we failed literally like 7 times. And at the end of this program, you have demo day, which is basically a pitch to investors to receive money. We found out that we wanted to go the point of sale route about 2 weeks before demo day. So what happened there is our technical co-founder, Joel Hopkins, he built out a tee sheet, like a reservation platform. So not even the point of sale system, because that was way too difficult to build within 2 weeks, but he slapped together a tee sheet literally within 2 weeks. Meanwhile, we were cold calling, trying to make sales for just small podunk golf courses that just needed a reservation piece. And we got like 3 or 4 golf courses to join on board, right? So in 2 weeks, we built a reservation platform, and we had 3 or 4 golf courses using it. And we pitched that demo day. No one was still interested in investing in us. So, that was the first part of that year. And I remember we had no money, so we didn't pay ourselves anything. So luckily, we were able to survive. Literally, we didn't pay ourselves a dime for a year. But we knew we were on the right track, and we started to drive enough revenue to like take care of hosting costs and, all the software costs that we had. And then to start paying us a little bit of money by the end of the first year. But that whole first year was just building the tee sheet, building the point of sale, building with golf courses. But we never stopped selling. That was one of the key factors in the first year. Even though we didn't have anything, we just kept selling and selling and getting on the golf courses that we could. And now that I look back, the positive to that is that when we brought on these golf courses, like they would tell us what they needed, right? Those ones that would venture off and be willing to go with a newer company, and then others that would say no, they would give us the reasons why they weren't going to go with us, right? So we learned exactly what these golf courses needed for this little niche market at the time, which was super helpful. So first year was just a lot of building software, going through a lot of bugs, going through a lot of headaches, not getting paid. It was a struggle, but it sure was fun.
That's great. And it sounds like one of your co-founders was more on the technical, maybe coding side. Did he build most of the software? Did you outsource that? I've always been curious how people build apps or software, if that's overseas. Or
no, he built majority of it.
Wow.
Like we used an outsource group for like a month or 2, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
I think there's differing opinions on that side, but with him, he was the perfect co-founder for this, right? He was scrappy, whipped together code. Maybe it wasn't the cleanest code, but he whipped it together really fast. And so literally we would be on a call and a golf course would say, hey, but I need this in my reservation system. And we would look to Joel and we'd be like, hey, can you build this like really quick? And then he'd be like, oh yeah, I could probably figure that out. And literally we'd have it out in a week and we'd say, hey, we can have this done in a week or so, right? And so he literally just built right by our side the whole time.
It's amazing.
We did use open source, so that helped, bring in that open source and then tweaking it here and there. But yeah, he was our main developer for the first year, our only one.
Yeah. That's great. And how many founders were there initially?
3 of us. So me, a guy named Joel Rhaegar, and Joel Hopkins.
Okay. And how did you guys divvy up? It sounds like one of the more technical side, but how was your role versus the other role of the third founder?
Yeah. So the main roles that we had in the beginning, like the first year, was just sales. So me and my co-founder, Joel, like we were all sales. And then Joel Hopkins was on the technical side. Main reason is because we didn't really raise any funding that first year. So like we had to drive revenue. And so we were just focused on sales the whole time. Like that was our main goal. And then, he took, Joel Rhaegar, he took on the books, right? So he set up QuickBooks and whatnot. And then I took on like building websites. Like a golf course asked us if we built websites for golf courses, and I didn't know how to build a website, but I said yes, and this is how much it would be. Then I had to jump onto WordPress and figure out how to build a website. We took on a lot of hats, but our primary hat was just selling.
Great. Love it. Well, what happened from there? So how did you guys transition from kind of more the booking software to full service POS and kind of integrating your platform? Like what are the next couple of years?
It's just, and we started off like at the very low end of golf, and I don't want to say low end, but just, the mom and pop shops, right, of golf courses, and they were wonderful. But they only needed so much software. But as we built up, right, and we had, middle end golf courses, inquiring about our software, we realized, pretty quickly that we needed like a food and beverage point of sale software. We needed member billing. We needed, inventory management and all these different things. And so really it just came from our customers that were onboarding, telling us what they needed, right? And going through the sales cycle with a lot of them saying, hey, we can't use you guys yet until you have this, this, and this. And so we kind of got a pathway pretty quickly on where we needed to head. And we just mainly serviced those golf courses that, were coming on at the time that needed a little bit more here and there. And so that's kind of how we figured out the product is that we realized, all right, if we want to get to this range of golf courses, these different types, public, semi-privates, and privates, these are the things that we need to build. This is what they're telling us. So it was just a process. I mean, basically, it was just customer validation to the fullest extent.
Yeah, love it. And I read that you kind of bootstrapped most of this, but did you guys end up ever raising outside capital to fund employees or fund software or anything, or was it really all just kind of rolled in?
No, we raised about $200,000 in a convertible note, but paid the majority of that back.
Got it.
So that's why I call ourselves bootstrapped, because we funded the company on less than $50,000. Like at the end of the day, as far as like outside money goes.
Love it. That's amazing. And so, 2011, you guys, where did you end up? Growing to? You mentioned 140 employees, over 1,100 golf courses. What was that journey like from going from the days of BYU up to, thousands, over 1,000 golf courses? How did you guys do that?
Yeah. Well, by the time we were acquired, we were just over 2,000. Wow. I believe we were right around that number. So we're a lot of golf courses, right? And the hardest part of all of it was getting to our first 100 customers. I remember going to Staples and getting like a big old board, right? And we wrote 1 to 100, and we got to like 10, and it's just like putting on 1 a month or 2 a month, and it's like, man, we're never going to get there, right? So the journey in the beginning was definitely a grind, but fortunately, our whole team, we're fairly optimistic. We're realists, but we were pretty optimistic that we could get there. So we just kept grinding and grinding. Once we got past that first 100 customers, it just felt much easier, right? We had a base to work off of. We had referrals. When golf courses would ask us, well, how many golf courses do you have? I wouldn't say 50 or 60, right? Or 70. I would say, oh, we have golf courses in 28 states, right? So there's ways you can, beat around the bush a little bit here and there. After that first 100 customers, and we got the product to where it needed to be for a lot of golf courses. And so we were able to scale just a little bit more. But it was a journey. Our real grind was the first 5 years. Right? A lot of people think these startups are quick. They're not. Like, I don't care what you're doing. Maybe you have the Instagrams of the world, but most startups are not. You look at the typical startup and, to acquisition, you're talking about 10, 20 years, right? Like it takes a long time. So our first 5 years, right? Outside of the first year, our first year we had some good growth because it's easy to have good growth from 0 customers to 10, 20 customers, right? But after that, we were pretty flat for 5, 6 years. And then after that, that's when we started shooting up pretty fast, I would say, right? We got the product to where it needed to be. There were a lot of laggards in the industry that started to trust us, that had been in communication with us, 7 years prior and 5 years prior and watched us grow. And so I would say at about year 7, 6, 7 is when we really took off. I mean, in year 7, we grew 100%. And then the following year, we grew by like 70% or so, which was an amazing time for us. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster. The whole ride was a roller coaster, but we did have those grinding years. And even when, you're growing at 100%, you're really grinding because you're having to hire people, a lot more people. You're having to deal with a lot more customer issues and servers and everything else, a lot more traffic to your site. So the whole startup was a grind, but it's a wonderful grind, right? Like I can't complain. It teaches you so much. But it was a great adventure from the beginning to the end.
Love it. So from a market standpoint, when you guys were going out to sell these golf courses, were you focused initially Utah, or what? Did you have people going out to all over the country? What was your focus and strategy in terms of selling golf courses?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was just cold calls to wherever we could go, right? We got lists, and be it California, Texas, whatever. Utah always has a special place in my heart because, we could actually go on site. We never had enough money to like travel out, right? In the beginning years, a ton. So Utah, we met with East Bay. Now it's Timpanogos Golf Course, and they were the first ones to, take a risk on us out here in Utah.
Nice.
But by the end of it, I think we had just over 50, 60% of all public golf courses in Utah using our software.
Wow.
So naturally, everyone knew that we were out of, the Salt Lake area, right? And so a lot of these golf courses just trusted us because we were right there. We were hands-on with them. We had great relationships with them. We could pass by, talk to them, help them out. But that was never like our complete focus. It just kind of ended up being really good for us because our presence was here. But the majority of our golf courses were probably all on the East Coast. Got a lot of golf courses out there. We had a lot of success out there. So cold calling was, what we did in the beginning stages. Then we got into Google Ads and just, SEO. And that made a pretty big difference in the leads that we were able to drive. I was never a believer in it because I never thought like golf courses would actually look up golf point of sale through Google, right? Yeah. But I was completely wrong on that. That was a great channel. As we got a little bit bigger, we were able to hire on like SDRs and have a full SDR team. That's when cold calling made a little bit more sense. I think the biggest turning point from us from a sales perspective, like in the beginning years, we tried to hire like that VP of sales from Qualtrics or whatever.
Yep.
None of that ever panned out or worked well. Like it was a disaster. Learned a lot from that, right? Fortunately, we never made, a big enough mistake that it took us down. But I would say about year 6 or so, we started to hire and go out and loosen up the purse strings a little bit and hire sales people from our competing companies. And that made the biggest difference. And I never realized how much of a difference it would have made, but I think I contribute that decision to a lot of our growth was going out, finding these industry experts that had been selling for our competitors and doing well. So I would just find whoever the best salespeople were or the people that we were competing against consistently, I would be in touch with them and started, recruiting efforts that way. And that made a huge difference.
Yeah, really smart. And I was going to ask you about competition. When you started foreUp, were there other competitors already out there, or was there a software that existed where people were trying to take it nationwide and be a POS for golf courses, or was it revolutionary to some extent?
No, there was plenty of golf point of sales out there that have been around for 20 years. Like you're talking about since the 90s, right?
Yeah, sure.
But that's what their software looked like. You could tell they didn't update a lot. So we had a lot of competition. We probably had, at least 8 to 10 competitors out there already when we got in. Most of them laughed at us as we, got into the industry, told us that, cloud-based would never work because the internet's not good enough, right? And these point of sale systems need to be up consistently. And, but I guess we're the ones with the last laugh on that one. Right?
Yeah.
So we were able to grow quite well and prove out the cloud-based model. And a lot of our competitors try to catch up, try to release some type of cloud-based model. None of them really did a great job. We did have, some competitors that came in a year or two after us doing all cloud, but fortunately, we were able to keep ahead of those guys.
So the cloud-based component of it was a newer idea or concept in the golf POS.
In golf POS,
Yeah.
right? Because everything was client server side, right?
Yeah,
Everything
okay.
required servers to be on site. People had to, back up their servers on a nightly basis. Literally, we had stories of golf courses where like thunder or lightning would hit the building and fry the server, and they would lose all their data from the last 10 years, and their system would be out, right? Like there's tons of those types of stories out there, believe it or not. But yeah, so ours was like the initial cloud-based system where we hosted the servers, and we did it through Amazon Web Services and whatnot, some other company before that. But that was the whole play, was that, hey, we can do a remote setup. We don't have to fly anybody out. All your updates automatically happen. You don't have to like shut down your software at all for the day and, download the new updates. You're going to get updates on a monthly basis as opposed to like an annual or biannual basis, right? And so all those advantages appealed to a lot of the golf courses that we're pitching to.
Love it. And I want to say a lot of times I think people have ideas, but they look at the competition and they're like, oh, it already exists or somebody's already doing it. But I think you guys, you saw there were already a bunch of competitors, but it's like, let's do something slightly different or another angle on it. And so that's, or even if it's just branding or like how you look at something, it can go a long way in terms of success. So I love it. I wanted to ask about your partners. So just what advice would you have in terms of starting a company and choosing the right co-founders? How do you think about each other's skill sets? Like, how did you decide on that team, and what maybe advice would you have for somebody who's either deciding to take it solo or team up with a partner, and maybe how you'd think about that?
So this is just my perspective, but I think being a solo entrepreneur is very difficult, and I know people can make it work. I'm just not that type, right? I think a startup is so difficult, and you go through so many difficult times that you need someone by your side to go through that with you, right? Someone that can help support you and that, can help lift you up when times are hard, and you can do it vice versa, right? For them. So I think, just from the nature of a startup and how difficult it is, at least, two founders is an important thing to me, right? Also, it's a lot more motivating to, be fighting for someone else, right? And yourself at the same time than just trying to do something for yourself. In the beginning days, right? Like I didn't have a lot of, I guess you do have a lot of choices, but there's not a lot of people that want to go out and take this route right off the get-go. Fortunately, I found a co-founder that I really got along with, right? Both my co-founders, in the beginning days, we got along very, very well. And I think that's so important because in a startup, you see this founder or these founders more than you see your own spouse or anyone else in your life. You're spending all day with them. And so I think the first thing is you guys have to be able to get along in a sense, right? And it's great to have controversy because you need to be able to go back and forth and not just be a yes man. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to jive well with your co-founders, would be, my advice. There's got to be something there, right? Even if you don't agree on certain things, that's okay, right? It's good to agree and disagree. Like, I think that's a very important part, but just know that you're going to be spending a lot of time with this individual. And so you're going to want to be there and want to be with this person. And if you hate this person, that's a startup's hard enough. You're right. You need these people on your team and you need to jive well to make things work. So yeah. So, and I think in the very beginning days, we found our technical founder. It was a miracle. Most technical people don't want to work for zero. Well, most people don't want to work for zero, right? But we found the right guy, and it was just a miracle, right? And so our founding team was the key. We, as I mentioned, we went through the Boom Startup program. A lot of those founders, broke off from each other or didn't get along and so forth. I think that was one of our factors of success is in the beginning days, we got along and we fought and we just were super diligent together, right? And that's the most important thing you can have in a founding team through the first several years. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's perfect advice, Evan, and a great way to approach partnerships. So you guys recently had an exit, a sale. Would love to hear just kind of, the lead up to that. You guys had been in business for about a decade. You'd grown it exponentially. What was the thought process? Why sell? What was that process like? And, how has it been since?
Yeah. The year that we sold, I never actually thought about selling. Like it wasn't really crossing my mind. I was just so focused on growing the company. And we had someone come in and offer us a decent number. And I thought about it. And I was like, well, that's more than I really anticipated even selling this company for, right? Even years ago. And so it kind of intrigued me. Also, COVID had hit. And so like the world was like a little uneasy. I didn't know what was going on. Everyone was working a little bit, or everyone was working remote. And so it was just an interesting time, right, for an entrepreneur going through what we were, right, all together, fighting, and then COVID happening and me thinking, oh, this will last for 2 to 3 weeks, right? Yeah. And then it's months and then years or whatever. And so it was just a really interesting time. But I just remember, getting this offer. And then I thought, well, why don't I just kind of poke around a little bit at, other offers. And, every entrepreneur gets spammed by private equity firms. I know that for a fact. So I just went through all the private equity firms that had contacted us and, just started selecting a few that I had been in touch with in the past, but, we weren't ready. And we just started that conversation that way. And then the valuation started to jump up and up and up. And the great thing is we were in a position where we didn't have to take a deal, right? Like COVID actually spiked golf. So we were in a great position. And, we had plenty of cash in the bank. We were super healthy. Growth was great. So I had no problem saying no, right? Or I'm not interested. And so we started poking around. And like I said, valuations kept going up and up and up. And it got to a number where, it just made sense for the whole company at that time. Interest rates were super low. And so I knew that, private equity companies could pay more at that time. So it just felt like the right time. So there's not much more to that story. I mean, I can tell you that selling a company is not easy, like the due diligence that they put you through. And having to go back and grab contracts from 2011 and 2012 that were on paper, it's not an easy process, and it's a full-time job to go through a full acquisition. You do learn a lot. You're negotiating with professionals, right, that do this for a living, and you're an entrepreneur that's just running a company that's never sold a company before, right? And so there's so many things that you learn throughout that process. But the biggest advantage that we had is that we just didn't have to sell. And if the number didn't make sense or even come close to making sense, like I wasn't interested, right? And so that is probably the best advice I can give anyone is get yourself into a position where you have the upper hand and you can say no all day long and not care. Right.
That's great. Yeah. So when you decided this is the time, did you hire like an investment banker to go ahead to a road show? Were you out talking with private equity?
No, I just did it myself. Okay. I did it with one of my co-founders, and cool. And we kind of looked down that route, but at the end of the day, it just didn't make sense for us. So,
and the group that acquired you was, I believe, called Club Essential.
Yeah, they're owned by Battery, so it's a Battery-owned company. Battery is a private equity firm out of Boston, and I think they have offices in California. But that was the main backer to it.
Cool. So since the acquisition, was there anything where they wanted you or your partners to stay on and kind of transition? Does the foreUp brand still exist, or is it now just Club Essential kind of rolled up? I guess what were some of the nuances there after the sale closed?
Yeah, no, they all they want us to stay on, right? Yeah. I don't think any company wants the founders to go away really quickly,
right?
So and foreUp stayed the same, right? As far as like the branding and everything else went. A lot of systems they try to get all into one with Club Essential and all the other companies that they owned. There's some accounting differences and things that we had to clean up on that side. Just nuances, not a big deal, right? They want to switch over to the CRM as a bigger project. Got to that a little bit later on. But I ran the company for about, 15, 16, 17 months after, and then just transitioned out this past January.
Got it.
So
yeah, and what was that like? I mean, was that just a decision? Hey, I've want to move on to the next thing. Why do that? I mean, kind of what was the thought process? When you finally left?
It's private equity is a different way. I mean, they have LPs, that they have to answer to, and they just have a different game plan. As far as an entrepreneur, I've always been focused on growth and, culture and building a company and building something super exciting. And I'm not saying private equity doesn't want that, but they're more interested, just on EBITDA and profits of the company, and because that's where they, derive their valuations from. So I can't fault them for that. So I think just there were some differences in thought there. And I just, to be honest, I didn't have as much fire as I once had, and it was time to move on. Right.
Got
and those guys are great. It was just time to, go separate ways, and just new phase of life, which, wasn't easy, right? It's it was 10 years total, and as the baby, but I just felt like, it's, there probably someone else could fulfill their vision a little bit better of what they were trying to accomplish than me, because I had a different vision for, how foreUp could be. But once something's not yours, it's just not yours anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so even though it's your baby, it's not. You kind of sold your baby, and things change, and sometimes you just realize that, hey, this is the end of the road for me, and it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So, but it was nice. Like January, transitioned out and took my family to Hawaii. And we lived there for 3 months, and it was great because I could decompress, and we just went on adventures with the family. We worked on good habits, and it was just a life-changing experience for us. And I hate winter, so it was great to get out and get some sun and be in the water a lot. So
that's amazing. Yeah, and it was a rough winter here in Utah, so that's a great plan.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Evan? So you've left foreUp. You had a very successful run and sale. What's the next bit look like for you?
Yeah, it's when you look back, right, you think, hey, this is it, right? You sell and life is all good. I've quickly found out that that's not the case. I've really enjoyed spending extra time with my family, with my kids, going golfing a lot more with them, and going to their dance performances and whatnot. Like, it's been really good to spend extra time with the kids. So now I'm kind of at that question of, again, like, what do I want to be when I grow up, right? Like, how do I want to contribute to society? And so I'm, just going through that phase of life right now where I don't want to rush into anything. I know that there's another startup in the future for me, but when that is, I'm not sure. But there's a lot of, time now for reflection and what I actually want to do going into the future. So really, it's that question of what do I want to be when I grow up? And I haven't completely figured it out. But I have confidence I will, pretty soon here. But like I said, I'm sure there's another startup in there that will happen, and I'm sure it'll happen sooner than later.
Yeah, so. No doubt. One question I like to ask guests who've had an exit and monetary success is how you kind of think about money now, because a lot of entrepreneurs, it's the grind to get to a goal, like a monetary goal. I want to have X dollars or have an exit or feel comfortable, this way or that way. But I guess now that you've experienced that, how are you looking at, money? How do you view it as a tool or resource? Like, I guess, has your mind shifted at all since you've had an exit? Just curious.
It's interesting. Right when we had the exit, I went out and bought a razor, right? And it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then, I quickly bought a Porsche, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. But, after buying some of these cool things, I mean, they are cool, but they're not they don't completely fulfill me, to be honest with you. Like, the razor sits in a storage unit right now and I haven't ridden it in, 12 months or something like that. Right. And so, my mindset's changed a little bit about money, where it's more freeing me up to do what I want to do, right? I don't have to answer to anybody. I can do what I want to do. I can take my family to Hawaii for 3 months, and we don't have to worry about anything, and we can focus on, adventures and building good habits. Like when we're in Hawaii, every morning we would meditate, and we would do yoga, and we'd do scripture study. And then, in the evenings we would do business lessons, and just teach them about the world and everything that's going on. And money has provided all of that, right? And so things are, fun here and there, but I don't really the funny thing is, before acquisition, you say, okay, when I have all this money, I'm going to buy this, 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 and this, and this. And now, like, I'm just not interested in buying a lot of things, to be honest with you, right? Like, we're building a nice house and everything else, but the material side has kind of gone away a little bit more for me, and now I've been more focused on, like, okay, how can I create more memories with my family, right? Where should we actually raise our family? Should it be in Highland, Utah? Should it be in Heber? Should it be here, here, or here? So I just find that money gives the opportunity to have more opportunities, right, to choose from, and to be a little bit more selective on that side, which has been great. And so, I'm still trying to figure it out. I will say it's difficult when you're living on a budget and you're bootstrapped, right, and you have nothing, to when you make, a lot of money and you have all this money dropped in your lap. Like, your habits don't completely change right away, and it's kind of confusing, and it's not as easy as people would think it is to be able to manage that money and manage, your expectations with it and what you want to do with it. And so it's not an easy thing. So I'm still learning. I'm much better now than I was, 2 years ago when we did have the acquisition. But yeah, it's a process that you have to get comfortable with, and you have to be wise with. I'm a true believer that, that when we have, a lot, then we have greater responsibility, right? Just like Spider-Man says. I don't know what that quote is, but I truly believe in that. And so trying to figure out, in the future, how can this money best, serve not just our family, but others? How can we build the community around us and give back more to this world is kind of like the focus. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Yeah. So, amazing. And that's a very, very similar response from others that I've heard is you come to realize it's more about experiences, memories, giving back, and kind of, how will you measure your life at the end of the day, right? It's not about the toys. It's really about the impact. So I love it, Evan. That's great, man. You mentioned habits. You mentioned a few there, but with entrepreneurs, there tends to be usually some habits or rituals or things that you've done that have kept you grounded in your life. Maybe if you could share a couple of those that have led you to success.
Yeah, no, for sure. So one of the big things was when I was little, I was very skinny. Like, my parents would say, Evan, when you turn sideways, you disappear, right? Like, I was just really skinny. And in high school, I was so determined to, like, not be skinny that I started doing push-ups like every day. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of stuck with me. Just every morning, I have my exercise routine, right? Maybe it's some push-ups or a run. Like this morning, I just ran 3 miles and then, did a different workout. But that's just been really good to get me up early and to get the right mindset and to be feeling good. Like in entrepreneurship, like when you're starting a company, there's so much that happens every day that you need to be like in a good physical state, in my opinion, to be able to take on those challenges, right? And so working out has been a big advantage, I feel, and just a habit that I've created since I was in high school, that has kept me just a little bit more energetic and, mentally and physically prepared for, these types of challenges. So yeah, I think working out's one, just, being religious, scripture study has always kept me grounded. I've always done my best to do that in the mornings, right? So I feel like I'm good spiritually, mentally, physically, and then ready to take on the day. Those have been some of the bigger habits. So then outside of that, I call golf a habit, and golf has always been a part of my life. And I think in entrepreneurship, it's good to get out ever so often and to feel the air, right? And to breathe in fresh air and to relax just a little bit and to, just be able to let go of the day's struggles and worries and focus on something else. And golf has always been kind of like that outlet for me, where I've always kind of taken time to, just play hard and have fun, right? Outside of work. So my motto has always been, work hard, play hard, like, most people say. So.
Love it. That's great. Yeah. Those really, really good habits help a ton as you're getting things off the ground and going through life. I did want to ask just on the investing side. So you mentioned money. How have you thought about investing personally, have you hired a financial advisor to help with some of that? Do you invest in anything outside of, the traditional stocks and bonds? Do you look at crypto, real estate, startups, other private equity, other tech companies? Now that you've kind of had a little bit of a windfall here, how have you thought about investing personally?
Yeah, no, it's a tricky game and I'm still trying to figure it out. But yes, I do have a few financial advisors. Just kind of stacking them up against each other, right? Seeing how performance goes.
Sure.
So I do have your stocks and whatnot. Now some bonds here, though I think the bonds are pretty boring. But anyways, but I've been a lot focused on real estate and so forth. It's interesting because there's so many real estate deals out there. And what I've realized over 2 years, right, is that you kind of have to find those groups that you trust. Investing is all about trust for me now, right? Like, what are the groups? And when you're new to this, you don't know anyone, you don't like completely trust anyone.
Right.
But after you've been doing it for a few years, you can kind of tell who are some of the winners and some of the losers, right? And I think it just takes time to figure that out on, who are the guys that you actually do want to put in money with, right? I think some of the best deals you're going to find are not from like financial institutions, like bigger ones, but from like local people that are doing projects and so forth. Mm-hmm. But especially in those types of projects, you have to have trust, and those types of people you have to trust, right? Real estate is a big thing for me. I love it. And then I've put some money into venture, right? I'm setting aside some money for my next venture that I'll end up doing. Like I said, it's been a learning process. I kind of play around with my own stocks and so forth here and there just for fun. But mainly I'm just focused on diversification. I like cash flowing investments. Those have, been the best. Some commodities plays. I'm in some oil deals that are great. But I like to spread, across and allocate to, different segments pretty well.
Yeah, so. That's great. Yeah, you mentioned trust, and I've had a couple of folks who've said similar things where it's gotten to a point where they'll have relationships where all it is a text message now saying, hey, I've got another deal. And there's such a trust factor that's been built between, somebody who's got a deal and an investor that it just becomes kind of an automatic thing. And so I appreciate you saying that, Evan. Last couple questions for you, and we'll wrap this up. Just in terms of advice for entrepreneurs, and we've talked a lot about different things here, but if there was anything that you'd say to somebody who's either in the grind right now or wanting to get in the grind, just lessons you've learned throughout your business with foreUp, any advice you'd give for new entrepreneurs would be great.
Yeah. A few things. So, as I look back, I would say the two skills that you need to learn are sales and survival. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But so sales, and I say that not just like selling clients, but when you're doing a startup, you're having to pitch to investors. You're having to, build trade shows, and you're having to talk to customers. The sales is involved in everything in the get-go, right? A lot of times, you have people that want to join your team and they're a product manager. Well, that's not going to get you very far a lot of times, right? And also through the sales process, right, you really learn about the product and product market fit. I always say that the best, customer validation is when they actually pay you something, right? So they can talk to you all day long, but until they actually give you money, I don't think that product is really validated, right? Yep. So, when a customer starts paying you $1,000 or $2,000 a month or whatever, you got something, right? And so that's why I think sales is so important. And to do it early, not to wait. Like, you start selling right away, even if you don't have much. Sell whatever you got, right? Or sell a dream, because it will quickly tell you if you're on the right route or if you're not. If you don't like sales, you got to learn how to do it. Like, you got to have that in you, right? Unless you're doing some play where you don't have a lot of human interaction, which I can't think of a lot of companies where you don't have a lot of human interaction. But for the majority of startups, 95%, I would say the founders need, if they don't know how to sell yet, they need to learn how to sell and be in front of people and how to interact and how to listen well. And I would say that's one big thing. The other is survival, right? in the beginning days, no one trusts you. Investors don't trust
Right.
you. Like customers don't trust you. You're new. And so you have to be able to survive, right? And the fact is the customers, like you're gonna have so many customers that say no to you in the beginning, but if you can survive to year 3, 4, or 5, those guys will start coming around. That's just a fact, right? And so, and when it comes to survival, like a lot of entrepreneurs, like if they come from the corporate world, they want to be paid similar to what they were being paid before. That just doesn't fly in a lot of companies, right? You're taking too much money off the table, too much money that will allow you to survive a little bit longer. So that was one of our keys to success is we lived super frugal. I mean, just to give you one quick story, like our fax machine, we didn't even pay for a faxing service. I called my mom and I used her fax machine at her house for all of our contracts coming in. So golf courses would want to fax their contracts in. It would go to my mom and I would call my mom and I'd be like, hey mom, did you get that contract? Right.
Yeah.
For the first beginning days. But we were super frugal, but that allowed us to survive another month and another month, which allowed us to get that extra sale, that extra 4 sales, 5 sales until we could actually pay ourselves like a decent wage. Right.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, like startups are all like, you always have a breaking point where you might survive or you might not. And so any help with cash flow or anything else, like anything you can do to extend yourself a month or two is what you should be focused on, because things don't always go your way. And you need to realize that quickly and in the beginning. So if you learn how to sell, you learn how to survive, and you can, be frugal, I think that increases your odds of success in a game that's, heavily not in your favor.
Yeah. So no kidding. Yeah. I think that's such good advice. We're kind of, we're in startup mode right now with our company, Park West. And, I appreciate that a lot, because every day that goes by, you're in survival mode in this market right now. Real estate, it's tough to find great deals. And so it's like just balancing all that out. And I think that's amazing. Yeah. Last question, Evan, we'll wrap up. Just in terms of, how you would define success, and this not just business, but just kind of life in general, holistically. When you think about, your time here on Earth, everything, how do you define kind of a life well lived and success?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, and it's hard because when you're an entrepreneur, right, you think success is selling, like that's the pinnacle, right? And you make all this money and you never have to work again. I quickly found out that that's not the case, right? Like we had this great win, Super Bowl, we got it. And then you realize pretty quickly after that, like life goes on, right? And there's more to do. And life is challenging, right? You have your ups and downs. Even when you have a lot of money, you have great exits, you're still going to have your ups and downs. And I think, success, I don't really think failure is failure in a sense. Like, all the times that we failed at foreUp were all learning experiences for us. We needed those to get to where we ended up, right? You just can't make too big of a mistake or have too big of a failure that sinks you, right? Like, but all the small ones, losing customers and everything else, like that just refines you as a company and as a person. And as long as you learn from those experiences, it makes you better. And I think that's where you'll derive a lot of your success, is that you take any challenge that's coming in life, and it's the way you react to it, right? Something bad happens. How do you react to it? How do you learn from it? And I don't think success is just like you're successful and that's it, right? I think you can be successful in parts of your life and throughout different stages of your life, and you can be a failure in different parts of your life if you're not actually contributing, right? Like people have said, well, are you just going to retire and play golf? It's like, no, because I feel like a contributing zero, right? Like I would feel so bad about myself for not doing any more, right? Or giving back to society that like I would probably be a depressed human being if I did nothing but golf, after this acquisition. So,
sure.
So success is just, for me, I don't think it's any one thing. It's just, a balanced life. They say there's no balance in startups. It's true. Like you're going to have, or no balanced life. You're going to have your busy moments. Like right now I have 4 kids under 10. It's a busy life, right? Even, where I get to spend more time with them, it's still busy having to run kids here and there and do a different million things. But it's being able to have a good perspective that, your family is the most important thing. So you always put them first. But then how do you contribute more to society? And I don't care if that's like, washing your neighbor's clothes or helping out someone that's sick, right? There's so many good things that you can do. But if you're always focused in on yourself, I think that kind of leads to a miserable life. But I think some focus on yourself is needed because you need to be better so you can be better for other people in a sense. But I think success is, yes, putting your family first, of course, and then finding ways to contribute to society and growing yourself constantly, that you're not ever just flatlining or going down, that you're always looking to grow, be it in investments, be it in startups, be it in being a better dad, but you're constantly looking to be a better human being so that you can be better for your family and for others around you and for yourself. I would say that's
Love it, Evan.
Define success.
No better way to end. I really appreciate you telling your story, Evan, and for taking the time today. This has been amazing.
Of course. Thank you, Chase.
Yep. Thanks for listening to The Chase Hudson Show. If you liked what you heard, please leave me a review and subscribe to this podcast. Reviews really help us to find better guests and to improve the overall quality of the show. If you'd like to connect with me directly or want to learn more about investing in real estate, send me a DM on Instagram at @officialchasehudson. Again, we really appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.